Thank you to all who are here in attendance this evening, and special thanks to past International President Ted Corcoran for showing up. Very welcome here. And I'd also like to welcome our immediate international past president, Morag Mathieson. So you're all more than welcome here this evening, and we have a very exciting programme lined up for you all. Our next item on the agenda is a poem, which is going to be read by Patricia Gray. She's going to be reading something that's quite topical for the moment, Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns. So reading A Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns. Please put your hands together for Patricia Gray.
Thank you. Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. Oh, fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee weel a while, and I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 mile. Robert Burns wrote that for his wife, Jean Armour, in 1794. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. That's our Divisionist Director, Patricia Gray. Thanks for the beautiful reading. Moving on, I'd like to introduce you to our immediate past District Director, Elizabeth Jordan, to introduce our next guest this evening. And if you have some questions, then please pop them in the chat for me. So I'll be collecting those later for the Q&A session. So I'm now going to hand you over to our International Immediate Past District Director, Elizabeth Jordan. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, DTM Sue, our host for the evening. And huge thank you to Patricia, because you read us 2 Robert Burns poems yesterday and 1 today. So we're doubly delighted. Thank you very much. I feel blessed because I was in the company of Madam Immediate Past International President Morag Mathieson yesterday, and I'm in her presence again today. And as I said, I feel doubly blessed to be in your company. First of all, we extend a very, very warm welcome to you. You're always welcome in District 71. We see you as a friend of our district. And every time you come and you talk to us, you leave us enriched. As the IPDD, I am the DLC chair. And what I definitely want to do is to have leaders come to our district to inspire the new crop of leaders that will be nominated, and then they'll go on to take their positions next year. And as I said, I can think of no one better, no one in such high regard as yourself, as to be inspiring all of us and all these leaders today. I would urge those of you who, if you haven't done so, just go and Google Morag Mathieson, and there's a plethora of fantastic information, including podcasts, videos, everything. But the highlights I would like you to know is Morag led the organization during its 100th anniversary. So a milestone year, and for that you'll always be remembered. Navigated major challenges and did it in a fantastic way. She was the first, first to add to your name, the first female from Europe to be international president, and only the 2nd person from Europe after, of course, our very own international president, Ted Corcoran. Those of you who love being on LinkedIn, every Friday, past international president Morag writes a piece on leadership. And I would say, for me, it's required reading, excellent insights and so on. And I would urge you all to go and read it. And I'm on a mission to persuade her to turn this into a book, because I do believe we have these wonderful insights. I'm not going to, we know that we're lucky to have one of the most highly regarded, respected, and loved leaders in Toastmasters, and she's with us tonight. We are very, very blessed indeed. The title of our presentation is The Legacy Leaders Leave. So with a speech, well, not a speech, a presentation, The Legacy Leaders Leave, you're very welcome. We look forward to hearing what you have to say to us, for you to inspire us. Over to you, IPIP Morag. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Immediate Past District Director. Good evening, members and friends of District 71. I'm feeling very at home with you this weekend. As Elizabeth said, I joined Division S for club officer training yesterday, which was bookended by 2 poems of Robert Burns. And here we are starting today with another Burns poem. What probably none of you know is that I'm a great fan of Robert Burns' work and have spoken many times at Burns events. One of my favourite poems, and I'm going to start with that. I hadn't planned to do that, but I will. And it's just a verse, actually from a song, and it's this. What can a young lassie, what shall a young lassie do with an old man? Bad luck on the penny that tempted my mother to sell her poor Jenny for silver and land. He's always complaining, from morning to even. I never can please him, do all that I can. That's just the start of it. You'll have to go for the rest to the books or to the internet. There you go. I love his humour. But tonight we come to a subject that is a more serious topic, perhaps, but a great pleasure to talk about, and that is indeed the legacy that leaders leave. My guess is, if we were to add up the length of time that Toastmasters on this call tonight have been serving as a leader in a club, district, or anywhere else in the Toastmasters organisation, we would have centuries of service given by passionate individuals committed to the development of others in Toastmasters. What a great benefit and great legacy that is to us all. Such a dedicated group of volunteers is an important cornerstone of any organisation, particularly non-profit organisations. According to a recent report, approximately 63 million Americans volunteer. That's about 25% of the adult population, contributing billions of volunteer hours to all kinds of organisations. I believe the proportions, if not the numbers, are broadly similar in the UK and Ireland. In my life outside of Toastmasters, I'm the chair of a child sponsorship charity here in Germany, and we have people who work for us and are paid, and there are many people who work for us sometimes just as hard and are not paid, are volunteers. When we talk about volunteering, I wonder what you think the essence of volunteering is. For me, volunteering is about giving something of yourself. We each have our own motivation for volunteering and reasons for doing anything. There was a study done in Canada recently that said the top reason why people volunteer is to make a contribution to their community. 93% of people in that survey gave that reason, followed by people saying, I want to use my skills and experiences. Then I've been personally affected by the cause, and so on and so on. Many other reasons. I know that we all join Toastmasters for our own reason. Usually it had something to do with benefiting ourselves. Maybe you wanted to give better presentations, to speak more confidently so that others will think better of you, or you'll be more successful in your career. Or maybe it was to build a network, and that was my own reason for joining. I joined simply to meet people and expand my network because I had moved from the UK to Germany. I knew no one. I was starting afresh. I I knew my husband and the dog, and that was it. I really had to expand my connections. What I discovered when I began volunteering for roles in Toastmasters is that while I gain a lot for myself by working the programme, that's great, but it won't be long-term sustainable only to satisfy my getting from the programme. When I fully participate, and as well as getting, I start to give of myself to others, which is essentially volunteering, then my contribution might never end. We volunteer to give without expectation of anything coming back in return, usually. And that truly can be a longer term commitment. Volunteer leaders are generous givers of time, talent, experience. And the old saying holds true, the more you give, the more you'll receive. When I began in Toastmasters, I was all about working the programme for my own development and enjoying the social life of my club. That changed for me the day when the club asked me to serve as their Vice President Education. And that's when I discovered I could really make a difference to the other members of the club, creating agendas that allowed them to meet goals, helping people find the best evaluator for a specific project, seeking out a mentor, organising speech contests where members could stretch their skills and where we could all have some fun together. I was willing to do all of that because I could use my own skills to make a contribution to the community of Toastmasters that made up my club. And since that first volunteer leadership position, whatever position I've held as a volunteer, the desire to make a contribution to the community and help others has been a driving force and has been my compelling reason for saying yes to opportunities. My own personal journey in Toastmasters continued on from that first club officer role when I won a speech contest, oddly enough. And winning that speech contest led me to get involved in district activities. I had really no idea what the whole big world beyond my club looked like. And winning that speech contest at club meant that season I went on to compete at area, I won and went on to division and to the district finals. And I will always remember walking into the conference hotel for the beginning of that event and seeing draped from the gallery of the hotel the banners of clubs from all over my district, Toastmasters of Paris, Rotterdam Toastmasters, Copenhagen Toastmasters. And for the first time I stopped and I realised that I was part of something so much bigger than myself. It wasn't just my club in my little corner of my own personal world. That was a really eye-opening moment. It was an opportunity to meet people and really see what happened when the district gathered to do business and have fun together. It led to me then later serving as the district conference chair, to administration manager, division director, programme quality director, and eventually as district director of one of the largest districts in the world. At that time, District 59 covered 18 countries in continental Europe with over 230 clubs. I could look at that as quite a lot of work for someone who only came to Toastmasters to meet people and have fun. Or I could see this differently. I was being given the opportunity to be the CEO of a pan-European organisation that opened up opportunities for people to develop their communication and leadership skills. And as they did so, grow their competence and confidence, leading to greater self-confidence that helped them change their lives and their workplaces and communities. My journey of volunteering continued all the way through serving as region advisor and on the board of directors to being international president last year in our centennial year, something I never imagined. And here I am now, the immediate past international president, on the board for another 6 months, and I'm also serving as a club president. Just in case you wondered, I don't have a superhero cape. But I do have a whole host of superhero friends who, through their volunteering, meant that I didn't have to walk that journey alone. There were those people who saw my potential and encouraged me to step up. And whenever I think of that, so many names and faces spring to mind, and maybe that's the case for you too. I also think about who has mentored me to help me overcome my nervousness or my uncertainty about moving forward. Who worked alongside me because they believed in me and in what I wanted to achieve, often before I believed in myself. Their legacy made a difference to me, even if they were unaware that they were leaving a legacy. It's often the case that our legacy is more appreciated and understood by those who are impacted by it than by we ourselves, especially the legacy we leave as leaders. Last year, we had the very great fortune that my husband celebrated 40 years with the same employer, and they had an event for him to celebrate his contribution in the company. He's not retiring, they just mark 40 years with the company. And it was fascinating to listen to people tell him the impact that he'd had on them. And he was completely unaware of how much they appreciated all kinds of things about him, including his good humour, but they don't have to listen to the bad jokes as often as I do. So maybe they see it differently. When we think of artists, perhaps we might think of significant pieces of work that they leave behind for the world to enjoy, or indeed similarly with poets and songwriters and authors. Think of the legacy of Robert Burns, whose work is almost 300 years old. We also might think of philanthropists, the technology groundbreakers like Steve Jobs, doctors and scientists whose research and new developments changed the world. The good news I have is that even if your name is not famous around the world, you can still leave a legacy. You leave legacy when you leave behind your knowledge and your wisdom. Each year when I bake a Christmas cake, I search out my mother's recipe and I think of all her insights for success in baking that cake that are not written anywhere. Maybe in your family, there are famous principles or quotes that influence how you think or which determine the culture in your family. My father always had this comment of, and I'll say it the way he would have said it, we're all Jock Tamson's bairns, meaning we're all children of the same father, meaning that there is no one who's better than anyone else. We all have a value in life and a right to be respected. Many people leave a living legacy, even if they never write a book or draw a painting. You also leave a legacy when your life touches the lives of others, whether that's in mentoring, in sharing insights, asking thought-provoking questions, perhaps. Each one of us here who's volunteered to serve as a club officer or served your district as a leader or supported the establishment of new clubs, mentored members, mentored aspiring leaders, have contributed in the same way. Your willingness to serve and to give of your time, talents, and experience have created opportunities for others to grow and to be better because of you. You have left a legacy for others to enjoy. And tonight, I'd want to say thank you to everyone for your leadership, for the sacrifices that you have made to give of yourself to benefit others. Volunteer leadership is a gift to many. When we take on a leadership role, we embark on a journey to see more than just success. We get to leave a mark that has an impression or an impact, positive or negative, after our term has finished, or when we move on to another role. Our legacy as leaders will be best remembered for its efforts when we help create significance for others. You can make people feel significant by getting to know them. It sounds simple. I began to feel valued in my club when the leaders of my club acknowledged me and included me, even in very small ways. Morag, could you be this? Could you help us this? They got to see my attitude, my work ethic. They saw what I was good at and they saw where I struggled. That meant when they were looking for a leader to step up, they knew whether they wanted to ask me or encourage me to do it or not. When I was club president, my club hosted our division conference. And just after that conference, I had a call from the division director to say that the district conference team that were due to host the district conference had pulled out. They weren't going to do it. Could I possibly pull together a team that would do it? And I spoke to the team I'd organised the division conference with, and they said, yeah, this could be a lot of fun. And so we put together, and in a very short space of time, ran a district conference. But my division director knew she could ask me to do that. And that's those moments when you think, I've been noticed, I feel significant because someone knows I'm here and knows that they want me to contribute and they can see how we can contribute. When we get to know our team, we are more likely to be able to position them to take on the sort of work that motivates and engages, and show them how we value and appreciate them. You also increase significance and create a sense of belonging when you include others. Whenever I'm traveling locally here, if I'm going to visit a club or to a local event, I will often ask people to come with me. I figure my car has 5 seats, I only need one of them. So who else can I take with me to help build connections on the way? Or who can I meet for a coffee today if I have some spare time? Creating a personal connection with others builds strong relationships, and it makes the realization of goals quicker. It's also easier when we have to have difficult conversations and when we want to open up about what's going on in our lives so that we can support each other through the difficult times. The significance you create as a leader will always outlast you. Even when you are no longer present, your significance will still be yours. Last year in January, I was at mid-year training with district leaders in Istanbul in Turkey. And this young woman came bouncing up to me and she said, "It's wonderful to see you again." And I'm desperately looking for her name badge, thinking, I have no idea who you are. And she said, "You probably don't remember me. You came to my district in 2019. And you spoke about this," and she was able to tell me exactly what I'd spoken about. I'd long forgotten. And she said, "I watched you that whole time. And you had such an impact on me. I knew that one day I would have enough experience to become a district leader. And I'm the club growth director in this district." I was blown away. One, that she would remember the event, and two, that such a simple thing from my side would have such a big impact on her. Being in leadership, sometimes it's said, is a bit like being arrested by the police. Everything you can say and do say will be used in evidence against you. That's an opportunity moment for us when we are in positions of leadership to really have the right impact on others. Our significance carries on. Significance keeps on giving. Think of the role models that you have encountered. People who have been moral examples of shown you integrity, people who taught you the best practices to carry out in tasks and situations. People do what people see, not necessarily what they hear. Good conduct is learned through observation. We teach what we know and reproduce what we are. When you are that role model and you positively change the life of another human being, significance carries on in them. And when we create significance for others, it satisfies our soul and creates a reward for us too. Think of the words of Robert Ingersoll: "We rise by lifting others up." We might think of the significance we create as our legacy, something handed down from one person to the other. Legacies come in many different forms. Volunteering as a leader is just one of them. The legacy is released as we pass on those skills, knowledge, and values to others who build on them. Who showed you to be a great mentor? Who showed you how to organize an event, overcome your nervousness on stage? There are millions of legacies being passed on every day. When you think of those people, you may remember who they are and how it happened very specifically, but it's likely that the volunteer who invested in you has forgotten that moment, not because you didn't matter, but because they gave to you, because it was the right thing to do, not because they expected anything in return. Volunteers are often undervalued and an underappreciated gift. Today may be a good day to send a note of appreciation or thanks to someone whose legacy you now carry. It will give them a sense of accomplishment. Today may also be a good day to think about the future. Think about the impact and the significance you could create by taking on another leadership role and serving again and giving again. As a volunteer, I encourage you, practice service leadership, help others grow and succeed. And by doing so, you will become a better leader. Pay it forward, give the gift of generosity, and you will become a better person. And seek significance. Focus on making an impact and leaving a legacy. And then you will know for sure that you will have made a difference. Sue.
Oh, that's an amazing speech, Morag Mathieson. Please put your hands together for Morag's speech. That was incredible. What an amazing session. Loved every minute of it. So let's kind of open up the floor for some questions. And I see one's landed in the question box already. So I will ask that one first. So are you ready? We have, oh, hang on. Just had a little thing on the moment on my screen. There we go. Fantastic. So how do you encourage people who are reluctant to volunteer? Because some people are like really willing and others seem to, you know, drag their heels behind them.
I think we have to understand what it is we're asking people. And some of that is around what are their motivations and capabilities. So getting to know people better is really important. As I said, you know, my club, it was easier in my club. Once they knew what I could do and what I couldn't do, there were things they would never ask me to do because it's not my gifting. You would only ask me if there was no one else. So as we get to know people, find out what are they good at? What are they interested in? What is it that lights that spark under them? So for me, for example, the development of people is really important to me. So if my club asks me to be the treasurer, it would be quite easy for me to say no to that in some ways. If they ask me to be the vice president of education, that would be really hard for me to say no to, because that's where my spark lies, in that area. So I think that's one of the things. I think also helping to understand what are the barriers for this person. What is it that makes them reluctant? Is it that they can't see how they'd fit it in with their time? Are they concerned about, is there a cost to me that I'm not aware of? What if I fail? You know, maybe they need the reassurance that there'll be a team around them, or that you'll mentor them, or someone else will mentor them, maybe not you, to help them on their way. Or sometimes people just need a little longer. So it might be bringing them into your world for small things, to let them see how things happen. So they have a window, a closer window on a particular role that you'd like them to take up.
That sounds like great advice, and certainly something that we need to listen to our members. That's really amazing. Now moving on, we have a comment here that we had a comment here from Tom. He said, excellent presentation, full of positivity and encouragement. So thank you, Tom, for sharing that with us, so I could share that with Morag. Another question here. Someone has said, have you had, they've observed you over time. You had to stop competing when you took on the district management roles. How can a serial contest gain a DTM if they are reluctant to give up a year or more competing?
It's all about what you really want in the end, what matters most. Everything in life is a choice. We all have the same number of hours in the day, days in the year. And therefore, we get to choose what we want to do. And it's a trade-off. So if I want to complete the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, one of the requirements is that district leadership service, which does mean that for that season, you will not be able to compete. So you sacrifice 1 year of competing to take on that role. And you have to decide that's an investment that's worth it. You know, it's a bit like when we're in our club, we have different meeting roles in our club. And there are people, and we sometimes know them, who just only want to speak. Well, for one person to speak, you need a whole load of other people to make it happen. The person to set the meeting up and introduce you, the evaluator, the timer, and so on. And surely it's reasonable that we would expect in our club that someone would not only speak, they would also do other things. And therefore, the Distinguished Toastmaster Award is that bringing together different pieces of experience, service at different levels, leadership at different levels, as well as working the education programme, growing the organisation, supporting other people in it, is just another part of it. I would say the trade-off, I think, is worth it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, for most of my time in Toastmasters, I have not been eligible to compete. And that was a choice that I made.
Yeah, I can recognise that. And I have chosen many leadership roles. And I'm wondering at the moment am I hiding behind leadership? But we won't go there today. So moving on. Who inspires you, Morag? Have you got, I know you mentioned a couple of authors earlier, some quotes and things, but have you got a particular favourite leadership author or book you can share with us this evening?
Oh, there are lots of people who inspire me. I think one of the books that I really, really enjoyed or series of leadership books that I enjoy are the books by Patrick Lencioni. One in particular springs to mind, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I recommend that book to lots of people, which talks about, he uses this idea of a leadership fable or fairy tale, and then debriefs it with some kind of substance behind it. What are the points that you've learned? And so I like his work. I think it's very accessible and easy to read. And he makes valuable and valid points throughout. So if you haven't ever read any of his work, there's quite a number of his books well worth looking at. But my personal favourite of his work is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
That sounds like a fascinating book and an excellent read, because I'm sure we have ways in which we can help our teams move forwards and move together with purpose. Now we have another question here. Clearly, you've spent lots of time volunteering in Toastmasters. Do you ever think about what you haven't been able to do because we only have limited time?
Mm. I don't. I do think about what I could have done with that time, because we can always do. There are so many things I'm interested in life. And when you invest time in some of those things, the time flies by. And so it would be easy to think, oh, I could have spent another day doing this or hour doing that. But I don't regret any of the time that I've spent in Toastmasters. It would just have been a different activity I would have done, not something that I think, oh, I would have got more out of that or enjoyed that more. So I don't regret any of the time. And very occasionally I might think, oh, it would have been nice if. So, for example, I've given a lot of my time to traveling or being present for district events at different places in the last few years. And my husband has chosen to come with me. He's also a Toastmaster, which is great, but it does mean his vacation time from work has been largely used up by supporting me in Toastmasters. And so we've talked about, once I'm no longer on the board at the end of August, what we might do with the rest of his vacation time from work, for example.
Fantastic. Yes, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that volunteers may feel undervalued and underappreciated. What more can be done to improve this situation?
I think there's lots of things we can do. I think there's a personal level of that where when we see volunteers, to appreciate them, or, at a district level or a club level, to have something special to support. I can remember a number of years visiting a Toastmasters club in India, and it so happened they had on the weekend before I was there, their mentor appreciation weekend. And that was a great big picnic they'd had in the park. And all of the proteges and mentors had come to the picnic, and the proteges had been asked to speak up and show their appreciation for their mentors at this picnic event. And I thought that was a fabulous thing. I'd never heard of any districts or clubs doing that before. And so I think we can intentionally set aside a time to say, let's appreciate. The same with district leadership team. If you're the district director, appreciating your team at the end of the year, club president when you're finishing the term, to appreciate, but also as you go through. And I think recognizing, acknowledging, when we know people, they did something that was really tough for them. So taking time to recognize and appreciate that when they've gone out of their way to help, or even when they've just done their job, it's always worth saying thank you. I think we need to do it more as often as we can, whatever the roles are.
Yes, gratitude goes a long way. I can certainly see that that's really helpful. And we should appreciate every single member that makes a contribution, no matter how large or small, because it all makes the whole thing go round. And I have here, there may be some in Toastmasters International that believe only a fraction of members. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've got a message that's come across my screen. There are some in Toastmasters International who believe that only a small fraction of membership would be interested in the international speech contest. Do you agree that there should therefore be greater emphasis on the admin role?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So.
I'm going to perhaps invite the person that's popped this question here to ask it directly. So I'm going to pass this over to Philip Campani. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question, please? So we're not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, I was speaking to a big wig over from America who came to visit us over in Ireland one day. And we were talking about the International Speech Contest. And he said, look, you need to understand that only a very small fraction of membership have any interest whatsoever in the International Speech Contest. Therefore, he says, some of us believe there should be greater emphasis placed on developing the admin roles and those skills there. I wonder whether you would agree with that.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by admin roles. That's my
The non-speaking roles.
non-speaking roles in a club meeting or in a
Well, let's say let's make it simpler. The district roles, for example, area director, division director, so forth, going up further up the ladder. And he felt that that was far more important than developing your public speaking skills.
Thank you for that clarification, Philip. That's helpful. I don't see those as administrative roles. I actually see most of those as entrepreneurial development roles. I think they are exciting roles, and I think each one of us has our own interests. There are some people who are just not interested in speech contests in the same way as there are others who are not so interested in bigger responsibility leadership roles. Simple, we're different people with things that matter more to some of us than others. But I see those leadership roles as definitely somewhere where you can test yourself, expand yourself in the same way you can expand your skills in a speech contest, but you can definitely expand your skills in those roles. But it's different skills that you're developing. But you also have the opportunity there for entrepreneurial type roles. If you decide you're going to, or if you're working on starting new clubs, for example, in an area or division level. If you are learning how to work with social media in the PR zone for your district, you're going to learn some really cutting edge skills that are quite different to what you'd learn elsewhere. So I think there are amazing opportunities out there. I don't think it's an either or situation. I think it's different skills that you're going to learn and different value in those skills to different people.
Thank you for that response. I hope that's answered the question, Philip. Now I have another message here from our wonderful Club Growth Director, Steve Campion. He's asked, please can you share more about the Mental Appreciation Weekend in India? Is this something that's done by clubs or district-wide initiatives?
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's done. This one was done by a club. It was a large club and they do it twice a year. They just invite all of the mentors and proteges to this picnic. And the proteges are really responsible for organizing it. And while they are there, they have the opportunity to give spoken appreciation, and they have little awards and trophies and things for all the mentors too. I thought it was a lovely idea.
Yes, it certainly sounds like a great idea. And yeah, the next question is about club officers in particular. In certain clubs, there is club officer stagnation and rotation. It can be a problem, causing conflict. And have you got any suggestions on how we can break through that kind of situation if it arises?
Mm.
I'm just trying to get a picture of that. Maybe, they've got officers that sit in one role and they just rotate round the same people rather than get new blood on the committee. Because I know in my home club, we're always looking at how we can inject new people onto the committee. But perhaps you've got some view on that.
For anyone who was at the Division S club officer training yesterday, you heard an idea about that, right? Someone talked exactly about that, about finding successors and saying that their model was, from this person's club, was in fact that every officer has an assistant with the intention that the assistant takes over at some point. So you're actually upskilling the whole club so that if your officer team were, God forbid, run over by a bus at once, you would have people that had some kind of idea of how to take over. And that opens up the whole thing of leadership. It's very difficult if you have a leader that's not willing to be transparent about the job that they're doing in the club. No one else is ever going to learn if they're protecting it and hiding it. On the other hand, it can give undue control if you keep the same people. I know when when I was in district leadership, we had one club where the husband and wife alternated as president and vice president education. And that resulted eventually in the club closing because no one else felt they had a say and no one else felt that they had an opportunity. And so we actually lost the club because of that stagnation that was happening in that particular situation. So I think opening things up, making sure that when you run club officer training, who are we inviting? Is it only incumbent officers? Are we inviting others to come to find out more so that they might actually say, I'd like to do this? Or when you're setting goals with your club members, if your club set goals, education goals for the year, what do you want to achieve? How are you dreaming? What are you thinking of for the future? Could you imagine yourself being whatever role? Or if you see talent in someone, speaking up about it and encouraging them to be positioned so that when the spot is there, they're ready, if necessary, to contest for it.
That sounds like excellent advice, and we should be creative in these scenarios and how we find our successors, so we get more people involved and give them more opportunities. So that's great. Now, who has left a legacy that inspires you?
So one of my most inspiring people is actually a lady from Scotland, sadly passed away now, but she was born in Malawi in Africa, and her mother died when she was, I think, 4 years old, and her father was a medical missionary there. And she was sent home to Scotland to be raised by her grandmothers. And then she went on in adulthood. She had her career, her own family, and so on, but always kept an interest in the country of her birth, and decided when she was in her mid-60s that she was going to start an organization that was aimed at providing funds for the education of young women in Malawi. And so she set up a fund in memory of her mother to do just that, to build the opportunity for people in Scotland to learn more about Malawi, because Malawi has, the town I grew up in Scotland is called Blantyre, and there's Blantyre in Malawi because of the connection of the medical missionary David Livingstone, who had gone there many years ago. And her aim was to try and provide better education in Scotland about what Malawi is like, what life is like there, but also to create opportunities for young women in Malawi to have education. And that fund has now continued for, I think, about 30 or 35 years now. She's kept that fund going, and it's still as strong today as it was when she herself was alive. And she really inspires me because she would constantly be having events and, come to my home, I'm having an event. And you'd go there and I would meet all kinds of different people and I would learn new things and I'd be inspired by that. And she'd always get money out of my pocket to support whatever was happening because it was just so inspiring. And I love the way in which, she, in the fullness of life and a busy family, grandchildren, all of that, she still found time to pursue this passion to really make a difference across the world, and to see the legacy that she has left behind in this fund, and to see the young women who have received education and further education because of her initiative, it just inspires me hugely.
That sounds like a wonderfully inspiring lady to leave such a legacy. That sounds terrific, because it is all about the impact we have on others. And I know that if we can have that impact, it makes us feel truly blessed. So thank you for sharing that story with us. There is sometimes a view expressed that TI expects too much from unpaid volunteers. How would you address this view?
I'm not sure if TI expects too much or who's expecting too much. I think we have descriptions of all of our roles, of what needs to be done. And I think when we take on a role, we need to find out what is required in that role. so that we do the things that are essential and the things that make a difference. It's very easy to become busy in a role and to do something because our predecessor did it, because it seems okay, and I'll add this layer and add another layer. If another layer is just busy work without impact, don't do it. Do the core of the role, the things that matter, that need to be done, and the things that make a difference over and above. That's how you'll have greatest impact and leave the best legacy in those roles, and not just getting busy for the sake of being busy.
That makes total sense, because I think we can think too much into a role and think we've got to do everything. But at the end of the day, there's certain things that we need to achieve that we can do to make a difference, to help our members and help our clubs get to where they need to get to, but without being ridiculous about it. In fact, I think I saw a TV program last night exactly about a lady who was a super organizer, but what she didn't do, she didn't have time out to have time for herself. So there was a lesson learned there.
I remember taking on the role of Vice President Education in my club, and when I was recruited, the person said to me, "Oh, don't worry, we have a spreadsheet and we'll help you." And the spreadsheet arrived, an Excel spreadsheet that was, I don't know how many thousand columns wide and lines long. It was absolutely unmanageable because they did everything on there, things they needed to do and things they didn't need to do, things that somebody said, "Oh, wouldn't it be good if," and so they started to do it. And suddenly you realize, as you, the new person, are trying to sort out, what is this role? And it was really unmanageable. And I remember going and picking up the club leadership handbook and thinking, what does my role require me to do? What do I actually need to do here? And then being able to sort out, no, I don't need to gather that information. No, that's not necessary. And really simplifying and cleaning up the role to something that was manageable. But there is a temptation, because we trust the people who hand over to us, to think, oh yeah, it's all got to be done.
Fantastic. I've just got one more
Mm.
question. I think we've got time for one more. And this one's about speech content, because I believe you won a speech contest. Did you win you did win a speech contest. Have you got any ideas for someone that might be stuck in generating speech ideas?
Topics for speech, ideas for speech topics.
Well, I think, no, I'm not 100% sure, because the lady's asking what your speech was about, but I'm not sure what the underlying question is here. So you might like to share with us what your speech was about.
So it wasn't in the speech, I competed in a speech contest, but it was table topics contest.
Oh, okay.
That I got to the district finals, and this is a story, it's for another day really, but the chief judge mistook what the grace period was, and I was ruled out of time, and I had actually won the contest, but I was ruled out of time, and I wasn't out of time, but once the decision is announced, it's final. So that was an interesting day for me, because that's a day when some people would have walked away. And I didn't. I chose to stay. I chose to realize that we make mistakes. And sometimes we just have to give a bit of grace, suck it up, and come back. And as I say, I've spent a lot of my time in Toastmasters has been in roles where I've been in roles where I could not compete. And then when I could, after I finished in district leadership and I had a year free, I came back and I'm like, oh, I'm going to compete. And it was evaluation contests were my thing also, something I really enjoy to do. But I've never actually competed in the international speech contest at all.
Thank you for that. And one final thing, have you got any tips for us on how to develop that skill of focusing on what's really important, has the impact, rather than just doing everything that's been done in the past?
I think there's some questions you need to ask, does this need to be done at all? Or is this being done by someone else? What is the role? And if I didn't do these things, do I leave a gap, if there's a whole pile of things? And I think the handbooks and so on, which are online, are a good guide to the basics. And that's why that important piece at the beginning of any officer team, whether it's a district officer team or a club officer team, sitting down together and really understanding who are we, what are we doing, who's doing what, to make sure that everything is covered and no one is left with a whole pile of things and everybody else is much freer, to make sure that what is necessary is being done. So, you know, there's that assurance of working together with others to make sure it's all covered, but at the same time, really working through just the basics, because the lists are out there. And that's always a great place to start, rather than reinventing a whole list of activities.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for all of that feedback and all of those ideas and information. I'm sure we could stay here all night, but we do have homes to go to and our families to get back to. So on that note, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your wonderful speech. I'm now going to pass over to the wonderful distinguished Toastmaster Jenny Chalmers for the vote of thanks. So over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. Madam Immediate Past International President, what a mouthful. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I enjoyed hearing your reasons for volunteering, not just to benefit yourself, but also to give back without any expectations. I appreciated hearing the importance of calling on other people to help. It's not always easy to ask people to help, but we can't do it all on our own, so it was great to hear that. It's been a privilege to hear your inspirational journey and your ideas for helping and inspiring others. Morag, you are leaving a great legacy. Thank you for sharing it with us today. Thank you.